All right, what's going on, guys? It's Brandon for another week of MMA breakdowns and bets. Now you will notice it is just me this week. It's a very lonely week. It's funny, Santino and I will be doing a million things. He's owns a gas station, runs two gyms full of fighters, and does a million things. He just put out a memoir and a book. Uh, Never misses an episode for a title fight, nothing else in his life. But right now he's on vacation in Hawaii. So he asked me to pick up the slack for when I was in Costa Rica. And I think that's a fair trade. Vacations, we'll take over. So this week is going to be the one man pod. So you're going to have to listen to me for a little bit. But that is okay. We're going to cruise through this thing. And I think we have a pretty good week ahead of us. Um, I am recording this on Thursday night. So as of now, a few fights just got added. We just got the Felice Herrig and Karolina Kowalkiewicz fight, and Dan Argueta and Damon Jackson. So we should be able to give a pretty good accounting of all the fights on this card, and there is a lot, especially compared to the last few weeks. It's felt kind of the light load the last few weeks with only 11 fights. And I don't even know how many are on here, but I'm sure it's like 13, 14, 15 fights. Uh, so we got a lot to choose from is what I'm trying to say. Um, Now I do want to say this podcast is brought to you by actually nobody, any other book besides my bookie. And we're going to say that until they pay us. I'm still waiting to get a nice little my bookie paycheck. So until then, the podcast is brought to you by any book other than them. This week it's probably going to be Bovada because I'm heading out of state. Um, I do want to say a big shout out to LaCroix. I found another flavor and another drink that I like, but LaCroix is tried and true. So always a big shout out to them. Um, And yeah, let's get into this thing. All right, so we got UFC Fight Night Volkov versus Rozenstruik. So as of now, according to Tapology, the very first fight of the night is going to be Damon Jackson versus Dan Argueta. Sorry, let me make sure my mic levels are good. Um, all right, so we're just going to get right to business here. So very first fight of the night, we got Dan Argueta and Damon Jackson. Now this is quickly become probably one of my favorite spots on the card, only because I know Dan so well. I know Dan and Damon very well. I mean, I've taped the two of them to the ends of the earth. So let's just start with the basics here. Is Dan is small. He's a tiny guy. He's usually a 135, 135-pound fighter. Now I would say he is a big 135er, but a tiny 145er, and that's just because of how his frame and how he's built. Um, let's see. The guy's got to be, yeah, it says he's 5'7". That might be generous. I think he's probably 5'5", 5'6". He's not a big guy at all. In phenomenal shape. His cardio on all accounts is out of this world. He never gets tired. But that last fight had to be alarming a little bit, right? He gets a tee up fight. LFA has done this with a couple of their champions, Charles Johnson and Dan Argueta. They want to get him some wins, get him some notoriety, send him to the big show. And weirdly enough, both of those guys have gotten really tough first matchups. Charles Johnson is fighting Mokaev, and now Dan Argueta is taking short notice up a weight class against Damon Jackson. So that fight was a little bit scary. He fought Diego Silva, who is not a world beater by any means, and not a world class wrestler. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt and okay standing. That was a gimme fight for Dan. I had him inside the distance. From his last fight, I didn't see a way that he was going to lose it. Take him down, Khabib him, punch him a lot, and man, Dan looked horrible. Not horrible, I guess, in the terms of it was a title fight in the LFA against another good fighter. He looked fine, but his wrestling didn't work the way that he gets it to work. And the problem with Dan's wrestling not working is his stand-up is not good. It's not good. It's not UFC caliber. It's not UFC level. So this one, I think he might be getting in a little bit soon to the UFC. and it's hard to say that because who knows if he ever rounds out his striking game. It could be that he just, he knows what he's going to do. He's going to go in there and wrestle you and beat you up from on top, and that's going to be his entire UFC career. But look at guys like Ricky Simone, right? Ricky Simone has that very same style, and he's excellent. I think some of the best jiu-jitsu in MMA, period. But now he's rounding it out and becoming a danger on the feet. The problem with Dan had trouble with the height in that last fight, right? That kid was a little bit lanky, a little bit tall. He had trouble. He couldn't get it down in the first few rounds. Well, Damon Jackson's a lot taller than him. And Damon Jackson wrestled in college. Damon Jackson's a good grappler. I think he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. Damon Jackson has good fight IQ. He's got good cardio. And his striking is leagues above Dan. The problem with Dan is, every time you put money on him, you close your eyes for the first 13, 14 seconds while he runs in, chin up, tries to not get hit, and finally grabs a hold of his guy. And then you can breathe, calm. Once he gets it down, he's got very good, his jiu-jitsu is really good too. I mean, it's weird to say jiu-jitsu in like the wrestler sense, but it's good. His top control is good. He doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. But that first 13 seconds as he's running in is always the terrifying part. Damon cracks. Damon hit Topuria hard. Damon hits everybody hard. I think this one's a no-brainer here, guys. I think, up a weight class, the taller guy, the stronger guy, the more experienced guy. I don't necessarily want to say cardio, but I think we could see cardio play a factor in this fight too, just because it is up a weight class, right? Moving around that extra weight as a wrestler, as a pure grappler, it does wear on you a little bit, and the nerves of being in the UFC. There's just so many things that stack up against Dan Argueta here. I love Damon Jackson here. I think this is a great, great, great spot for him. This will be one I definitely go in on. All right. Next up, we're going to cruise right along here. Let's see what we got. Okay, so next up we have Tony Gravely and Johnny Munoz Jr. This fight is a really tricky one to me. I think there's a lot to like about both these guys. Now, I am one of the biggest Tony Gravely fans ever. Getting to hang out with him when I was cornering V. Cool guy, super, super nice. Not very big. He's my height, 5'7". Honestly, pretty similar to my build. He's probably right about my size. He's not a huge guy. But some of the best MMA wrestling that I've seen in a long time. I mean, his MMA wrestling is sick. His hands are heavy. He's an ultra veteran of the game. He's been around for a long time, and he's fighting the new up-and-comer Johnny Munoz Jr. Okay, Johnny Munoz took a short notice fight and looked great in round one against Nate Maness. And then, whatever reason, he gassed, he felt the nerves. Any number of things could have gone wrong, and he ended up losing that fight. Okay. Next fight, he fought a gimme in Jamie Simmons. Now, the only thing with the Jamie Simmons fight is it makes me go, okay, what is the UFC trying to do here? Are they looking at Gravely as a stepping stone to build this new star in Johnny Munoz Jr.? Is this a winner gets a push? What's kind of the angle here? Because the way that I see it, it kind of comes down to this. Gravely is a much better wrestler, and I think he's got much better hands. I don't know where I'm going with the cardio edge, but I think Gravely much better hands, much better wrestling. Johnny Munoz Jr. is tricky, man. His jiu-jitsu is legitimately very, very good. So Gravely does take him down. He's been shown to not have the best fight IQ. Weirdly, he makes weird mistakes. He ends up in spots that he really shouldn't be all the time. My wonder is just Johnny Munoz exploit that? Does he use a guillotine to come up to the top? Does he throw up a good triangle or an armbar? Does he scramble well? Does he take the back standing? There's a million ways this fight could play out, and they all scare me. Every one of them scares me. I guess I don't want to have I'm not going to die on a hill here and have a super crazy opinion. Just from what I've seen in the striking, I like Gravely a lot. If he has any semblance of fight IQ, never shoots a takedown this whole fight. He defends takedowns, cracks him with the hands, calls it a day with a nice paycheck. Because the problem with Johnny Munoz is he shoots from so far. And he's also been used to having the wrestling advantage and the grappling advantage in all of his fights so far. So now what happens when he gets a guy who's been at ATT, wrestled in college, like he's a sick wrestler? then what? What do we rely on? I don't know if he's that comfortable with the hands just yet. So I would say I lean Gravely, but with not a ton of conviction. That's all I got on that one. All right, let's move to the next. Alrighty. Next up, we have Joe Solecki and Alex da Silva. This is a tricky one. So I talked to the big boss man Santino. We actually were chatting about this one. So on his flight to Hawaii, we're talking fights, of course. So I thought this one was lined really interesting. Hold on, I need to pull up a site with some lines, not my bookie. No paying me. Watch, they're never gonna want to sponsor us again just because of my big mouth. But hey, you got to make do. It's a fair trade. I like my bookie, but All right. So Joe Solecki is minus 179 and Alex da Silva is plus 146. So the way that I look at this fight, it's actually two similar guys. I think they have really similar styles. I think they have really similar attributes and weaknesses, weirdly. Man, Alex da Silva looked great in round one against Brad Riddell. He had a lot of great moments, just period, in that fight. I think the really important thing here is this is the first Brazilian that I've seen in a long time, other than like Jalton Almeida, that has good hips, that can like wrestle a little bit. Because what's Joe Solecki's path to victory, right? He comes out every fight, he comes out hard round one, blast double leg, gets your back, and that's round one for him. Okay. Round two, it's always a very, very, very close round. He starts to kind of get tired. He sometimes starts working the hands a little bit, which I think his hands are decent, but they're not there yet. And he's not comfortable yet. And then round three, he's gassed. And that happens. That's almost the blueprint in every single Joe Solecki fight, right? Let's see. Yeah, because he lost to Jared Gordon. He beat Jim Miller, beat Austin Hubbard first round. Matt Wyman. Do we care about Matt Wyman? Not really. To me, it comes down to this. I think Alex da Silva has good hips. I think he can stop a takedown or two, and at the very least, he's a good scrambler. He does work his way back up to the feet, and then I think the big advantage here is the striking. I think his striking is a lot better. Right? Both of them have deficiencies in the cardio. Right? I think round three is where they both fade. So then it's who's sharper, who's a little more vicious. I think Alex da Silva is a great dog play. I give him the advantage easily on the feet, the low kicks, the overhands. He's just more comfortable. He's more game. Good takedown defense, decent enough. If not, he scrambles well. I think both of those things are going to be enough to wear out Joe Solecki, and then we see maybe even kind of a one-sided beatdown. I mean, look at what Grant Dawson did to Jared Gordon, and then look at the time that Joe Solecki had with him. Jared Gordon's tough and he's an ultra veteran, but he's not some world champion wrestler. He's not a Sambo, world champion, anything like that. And Jared Gordon found his way on top a million times in that fight. Did a lot of things well. So I think this is two young studs, and we're gonna see one come out of this, and I think it's da Silva. All right. Let's see. Man, this thing moves a lot quicker when it's just one of us. Tino's a little long-winded. He can ask me what I had for lunch, and if I respond, it'll be a 45-minute conversation. But that's okay. That's why we love him. Oh, Santino long wins. Okay. All right. Next up, we have Benoit Saint-Denis versus Niklas Stolze. Now, this was another one that I could not believe the odds. I really couldn't believe it when I looked at it. I haven't looked this. I'm kind of like looking at this, the odds for the first time. The only one I looked at was actually this one prior to this. And I saw that Niklas Stolze is an underdog. So we got Benoit at minus 155 and Stolze at plus 129. This is shocking to me. This is really, really, really shocking to me. A guy that had a really close fight with Ramazan Emeev, had great moments in the fight, has shown some really, really good skills, really good movement. He's tall, he's lanky. He's at Syndicate, which that might be the only thing I don't really like about him. Versus a guy who's getting insane brownie points because he had enough heart to not quit. Okay, I agree. That's awesome. I think, man, what a tough guy. The unfortunate part of that is he's got 10 years taken off of his life, right, from being in that fight with Solecki. So I mean, it's weird seeing the money come in on the recency bias, because if you look at Benoit Saint-Denis pre UFC tape, it wasn't good either. He's an okay grappler. Okay, like okay is being very nice. He's an okay wrestler, okay grappler, and he's got one round in him before he gasses out. And then you look at a guy like Niklas Stolze, right? He's got good kickboxing. He's a very, very solid kickboxer. Just look at their bodies, the way that they move, right? Benoit Saint-Denis, he's very stiff. He's very rigid. He's very slow. And man, is he uncomfortable with the hands. He is terrified to throw with the hands. The one time he looked comfortable was actually when he was hurt against Solecki and then just starts chucking. Why not? He's got nothing to lose. He's either going to get knocked out or he's going to catch something lucky, and that's his path to victory. That's the only time he ever looked comfortable. Now at distance, it's a complete different story. I really, really, really like Stolze here. I cannot believe he's an underdog. I think, if I had to give him any knocks, is first, he loves that guillotine. He jumps to the guillotine so often, so much more than you'd ever want to see. But I will say this, and you're not going to hear me say this often. As a matter of fact, even in the training room today, guy kept pulling guard, going for guillotines. 2 people tried that on me, and they were tight guillotines. Trust me, they were tight. But what did it take me? 2.5 seconds to get out? And that's just to tell you is like, I just hate it. I hate it. So all that for me to say is when he drops for guillotines, they're actually very, very tight. They look like good technique. He's got a good framework for it, a good body for it. And they're tight. Now, the thing that I really, really like about him, okay, now if he stayed there and that was the death touch, now he's on the back for the rest of the round, we'd be having a different conversation. But what I really like is he jumps for the guillotine. If he does not get it, he's back up. And his stand-ups are good. He's got good fight IQ. He's got a good wherewithal. I think his striking is a million levels above. And then he has shown when he wants to, he can have good hips. He's got a really good sprawl. I saw Ramazan Emeev shoot on him a few times, right? And the times that he was thinking defense instead of offense, right? Pardon me, sprawling instead of using the guillotine. His hips look great. I just think he moves so much better than Benoit. I think he's got so much more skills. I think cardio. The only one hangup that I would have with Stolze here is he did a practice cut to 155. He was kind of playing with that and didn't end up doing that, right? This fight's still at 170. Does that have any effect on him? I doubt it. It's been long enough, but he must have not been feeling something when he was going to try to do 55 that made him stay at 170, or maybe it was a good matchup, whatever it is. I don't blame him for getting flatlined by Jared Gooden. That's a hard hitter right there. We just saw what he did to Curtis Millender. So no shame in that one. That happens. That's part of fighting. I just think you guys got to use your eyes on this one. To me, it's a don't overthink. Weirdly, I want to say it's like don't overthink this one. Stolze moves better, is better, just better everywhere, and he's at dog money. Like how could you not take a chance on that one, right? All right. Next up, we have Erin Blanchfield and JJ Aldrich. Well, it's going to be hard to find value in this fight. Pardon me. I'm not used to not having coffee breaks, right? In between Santino's long-winded, I could get up, brew a pot of coffee, make it. I could actually probably get the beans myself, roast them, and grind them up, brew it, pour it, drink the entire thing by the time he's done with one. So it's kind of weird to have this little like pause in between when I want to take a little drink of coffee. But all right, here we are. So Erin Blanchfield, it's going to be hard to find value here, right? Her money line has been shot to hell. She's fighting JJ Aldrich, who is not a bad fighter, right? JJ does a lot of things really well, and she's performed a lot better than she looks. And what I mean by that is her body looks horrible. And I don't mean that in a mean way. She just soft and wide hips. I think she used to fight a lower weight class and she ended up moving up, right? It, and it's for obvious reasons. She's not a small girl by any means, but she's skilled. She's like, to me, a prime example of somebody who just doesn't mess up, doesn't make bad decisions. She's not overly talented or phenomenal in any area, but she doesn't make mistakes, and that's something that's super super important. So the reason that this fight is so interesting is because you have Blanchfield, who not only doesn't make mistakes, but she is that talented and she is that good. So to me, I think this is a don't overthink it. Blanchfield is the truth. She is very very good. Her grappling's only getting better. Her striking is going to bring her in range. So the thing that we need to watch here is you have opposite stance, right? You got JJ, who's a southpaw, and then you got Blanchfield, who even knows what Blanchfield is. She's like a square fighter. She's just kind of both, right? But what I mean by that is she throws a lot of volume punches to bring herself in that close range, and that's when she looks takedowns. Her takedowns are sick. She has great top control, where JJ, I think, has a little trouble getting off the bottom. So I love Erin Blanchfield here. I mean, I know the money line's crazy and it's insane, but I like it. I mean, she's good. She's very, very solid. Put it in a parlay, right? If you don't want to play this straight, I think JJ is good enough where you don't want to play this straight. You don't want to play with fire. We've seen a lot of crazy things happen. But Blanchfield's last fight was against Southpaw Miranda Maverick, who I think is stronger and more athletic than JJ. And we saw how she went there. So to me, the question is, does she finish this inside the distance or does this go to a decision? I think history would say goes to decision. But she came that close to finishing Miranda Maverick a few different times, and her jiu-jitsu is excellent. Um, don't put the house on it, but I think if you're getting crazy here, I think you can try Blanchfield inside the distance. Why not? Why not give it a shot? All right. No need to spend any more time on that one. All right. Next up, we have Andreas Michailidis versus Rinat Fakhretdinov. Oh boy, I hope I don't have to say that name for years to come, but it's gonna look like I am. I'm not going crazy on this prospect. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, he's the next champion. He's this guy we've never heard of. But in this matchup, I like him. Um, the one thing with Michailidis, God, I need a nickname. The Spartan. That's what we're gonna call him, is the Spartan. The one thing with the Spartan is we've never had somebody really walk him down. Um, in all his fights, the Modestus Bukauskas fight, he was stalking him down. The KB Bolaher fight, he stalked him down the entire time. And Bolaher, I don't know what was up with him. He looked gun shy. He looked a little bit nervous. Like the moment was a little bit big for him. And that guy's got skills and he's got talent and he's fast and athletic. That could have been a good fight for him, right? It was a kind of a showcase fight. This is two fights in a row. I guess 3 fights in a row now that the UFC is using the Spartan as a tee up spot, as a showcase for a new prospect. So I don't think we treat this one really that different. He's he lost to Modestus and he lost to Alex Pereira by flying knee. I think Renat's going to be the first guy that actually stalks him down. I think he's a better wrestler, and not that we have a ton of evidence on it, but I think he's a better wrestler. He's going to be in his face. Very, very active. Lots of just meat hooks. So the way that I think you play this, I like Rinat here. I like Rinat to win. Not by a country mile. I don't think he's like the second coming of Christ or anything like that. But I like his style here against Michailidis, whatever you want to say. But I also like fight doesn't go the distance. Both of these guys have a ton of finishes, and both of them throw very, very hard on the feet. I think Renat's got decent cardio. I could see a tired Michailidis getting finished late. I could see them just chucking meat hooks at each other until one goes down. They both have a ton of finishes. I like fight doesn't go the distance, and I like Rinat to get it done here. High level camp, decent wrestling, decent pressure, big overhands. Not the prettiest fight, I'll tell you that. It's not going to be some gorgeous Alex Pereira versus Bruno Silva fight, but it'll be a wild one for as long as it lasts. Alrighty. That takes us to O'Day Osbourne and Zarrukh Adashev. Now, this one's a little tricky to me because just like I was saying about Michailidis, the UFC keeps using Adashev as a showcase spot. The problem is he's better than they were hoping for. I'm not really sure how he got signed. So if one of you guys knows how or why he got signed in the first place to the UFC, please put it in the comments because I want to see that. It looked like he went from Bellator and he was 3-1. So I'm assuming it was probably a late notice fight against Tyson Nam, and he got counter right, lost in 32 seconds. Then he went to a decision with Maderi, and then he beat Ryan Benoit. So I think he's a good kickboxer. I think he's solid. His fundamentals are nice. I think he's a very, very good kickboxer. Here's the problem sometimes with the flyweight guys, right? That's the lowest weight class you can go. He's 5'5". He's not a very big guy, and he's got a little chunk on him. I think if he wanted, I think he could make an even lower weight class. But when that is the lowest of the low that you can get, it doesn't. You can be any size. And I guess the most recent example of this, I would say, would be Cledson Rodriguez versus Santo Curatolo. So if any of you guys remember that fight on Contender Series, Cledson is a massive flyweight. I mean, he is a massive flyweight. I think I'm a big flyweight. People will ask me, hey, what weight are you? And I say, they always guess. They'll say featherweight, bantamweight. Bantamweight's what I get the most often. They think I'm a 35er, and I'm a 25. No way. And it's always this kind of shock and awe moment. Cledson makes me look tiny. I mean, it makes it look like I need to hit the gym for 10 years bodybuilding and then come back to I mean, that's how he looks. And he fought Santo Curatolo, who's 5'3", decent shape, everything like that. But Santos should be fighting in ONE FC at 115 pounds, not at 125. So I guess where I'm getting with that is O'Day, to me, is another guy that's a pretty big flyweight. He's 5'7". He's muscular. He's tall. He's rangy. And Adashev is 5'5". So it's not the biggest height difference, but it's weirdly like the build. Like one guy is so muscular and long. The other guy is kind of short and stubby. The UFC is trying to give O'Day a showcase spot here, right? He already fought a very talented, athletic, pinpoint accurate southpaw in Sumaderji. So they're giving it to him again. So here comes O'Day Osbourne. Now, the big difference in this fight for me, so he won the Benoit fight, but he chewed up that leg so early. That was just the big theme in the fight was, man, that calf kick, and it hurt him so badly. Without that calf kick, do we know how close that fight would have been? I mean, it seemed like every other punch, Benoit was rocking Adashev. And Maderji rocked Adashev. And all of these guys have rocked him. And he got knocked out by Tyson Nam. He lost a rear naked choke in 2015, so I don't put that much stock into it. But man, the guy is a very talented kickboxer, but he's very chinny. Against a guy who's explosive like O'Day Osbourne, I think that could be a problem. But if you told me that Adashev won that fight, I'd be like, yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. So I think skill for skill, Adashev is probably better. But then you have that raw athleticism of O'Day Osbourne. You got the power. You got the UFC's matchup. You got the chin. And the other thing, too, is Adashev is a counter puncher. He's getting backed up to the fence in a lot of these fights. Even against Ryan Benoit, who was on one leg, switching stance in a stance he was clearly uncomfortable with, was still backing up Adashev the entire fight. He doesn't have the wrestling to bail himself out, if he does get rocked. His jiu-jitsu is not excellent. And he doesn't have that moving forward pressure. I think that's where O'Day got in some trouble with CJ Vergara, because CJ had that forward pressure, which is something that actually Adashev does the opposite of, right? He puts himself back on the cage. So I think for the judges, I think for the UFC, I think this is a showcase spot for O'Day. I'm not in love with the spot because I think O'Day certainly has his flaws. Starting with his gym, I don't like the syndicate game planning, coaches. Not much I like about syndicate. Second, we saw him tire out against CJ and show not the best fight IQ. But when O'Day was on, he was on. So I'm going to lean or probably take O'Day here, but it's not like, it's not my favorite spot of all time, but I like O'Day to get it done here. I could see a knockout. That's probably it. Just a knockout. Alrighty. Next up, we have everybody's favorite in the world, Jeff Molina versus Zhalgas Zhumagulov. So this is another one I was talking to Santino about earlier this week, and he wanted to hear my thoughts. And what's funny is that we came to the same conclusion, and the conclusion is going to make MMA Twitter and it's just going to make them hate me. The problem with fighters being so active on Twitter is the second they give you attention, you're like, wow, oh my God, this is the guy. This is the guy. Like, and you just root for him endlessly. The second they mention something about gambling or betting. Let me say this. Let me start by saying this. I think Jeff Molina is a good fighter, and I think he's going to win a lot of fights based on two things, and they're the two most important things. It's cardio and it's fight IQ. He's going to win a ton of fights just based on that, right? I just think this matchup is a very, very tough matchup for him. And here's why. It's hard to get past Jeff Molina's body. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not like I'm this crazy 6-pack abs and I look like Cledson Rodriguez over here. No, not by any means. But Jeff looks very soft and his arms look very weak. And he just has like a kind of a teenage boy body, and I don't mean that in a rough way, because his skills far exceed his image. But if we take a look at his record, right, he had a close fight. I guess it wasn't that close with Jacob Silva, where he lost the first round and then came back and won the next two. He beat Kenny Porter, Chance Wilson, Johnny Rose. I mean, he beat a lot of bad guys, just like everybody does. You can't judge him for that. His win over Aori was very impressive. Now, what I would say about that fight is he was losing every minute of the first two rounds until the last, not even 5. It was like 3 seconds on the clock, and then he rocked him, and he ended up winning a decision. Lost 4 minutes and 58 seconds of the first two rounds, comes back and rocks him for a second and gets awarded the round. So I guess that was really interesting scoring there. But again, it looks bad for the judges when you're getting backed up the entire fight. And all of these guys love to back up Jeff Molina, right? We saw it in every fight that he's had. Jacob Silva backed him up. Aori backed him up. Daniel Da Silva, who doesn't belong in the UFC, backed him up. So I think we're pumping up these wins just a little bit. I thought he lost the Aori fight, but man, he was a gamer. He made good decisions. He stayed in the pocket. His boxing looked crisp. It looked good. But here comes Zhalgas, who I actually think his best trait is the fact that he's retarded. That is probably one of his best traits. Being a dumb fighter sometimes is like the best thing that you could ask for. He doesn't know that he's not this like beautiful, pure, crisp, and maybe he does know, but he's just too dumb to care. He charges forward, he swings bombs, he wrestles, and then he doesn't wrestle. He's just dumb, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think this is going to be a really tough style for Jeff. I think that pure physicality, that Kazakhstani wrestling, just that pure forward pressure, chucking bombs is going to be a huge, huge problem for Jeff Molina. Zhalgas can wrestle when he wants to wrestle. He tagged Manel Kopp a couple different times. Jerome Rivera didn't belong in the UFC, but he had a very close fight with Amir Albazi, who I rate so high. The Raulian Paiva fight was very interesting. He beat Ali Bagutinov, Tagir Lumbekov, Tyson Nam. I mean, he's beating some awesome guys. Artur Baganitov. He's a grinder, man. He's gritty. He's in your face. He's mean. He doesn't really get that tired. And I think that's one thing that really plays in Jeff Molina's favor is a lot of guys get tired. Jacob Silva, known to gas. Like a lot of these guys get tired. I think that dumbass Zhalgas is going to be in his face, taking him down over and over and over and chucking overhands and being too dumb to care. I don't think Molina has the power to put Zhalgas out and to keep Zhalgas off of him. So as much as you guys love Jeff because he responds and he gambles and he's part of this community, I think you guys need to look at this just like look at the matchup at hand. And I don't know if that has any reflection on the lines, right? The reflection on the lines is him beating this Brazilian berserker that everyone was so obsessed with that I called last time that Figgy Jr. was going to beat him, but it's reflective of him beating that guy in the first round and beating Aori, who just starched Cameron Else, and it looked great doing it. So to me, if I can get some dog money on Zhalgas, who I have always thought is better than people perceive him. I've made money on every single Zhalgas fight, for or against. But I think he's better than people perceive him. He had some great moments. He looked decent. His head movement's crazy, and he's just dumb. And you gotta love a dumb fighter. So I'm gonna rock with Zhalgas here. So I feel like that's quite a few dogs already on this card. I like this card. I think it's shaping up to be a very profitable one. All right. Oh, and I didn't even remember to say this, but last week my picks, I think they went 14 for 14. I swept the entire board, dogs, favorites, all that good stuff. And then I even put a note at the bottom. So I put Ketlin Vieira, and I said I just have a strange feeling about this one. And I can't explain it to you guys. The people that have been with me for a long time, they know this gut feeling that I get. Sometimes I can't sleep. Sometimes I'll have dreams about it. But every time I wake up feeling like there's this weird thing, almost like it's scary accuracy. It's probably 95%. It always loses. Every time I have this dream about it, like Mahmoud Subi, I forgot that he got KO'd. For any of you guys that were with me through the Subi debacle, I forgot that he got KO'd. I had a dream the night before that he got KO'd. Rayoni Barcelos, I had a dream that he lost. Like so many of these people, I have a bad dream and immediately they go and lose. And I just had a weird feeling about Holly Holm. Everybody was pumping Holly Holm. She was in every parlay. Like people are like, lock of the freaking century. Well, I've been on bad sides of a lot of Ketlin Vieira fights. So for some reason, I was just like, this big, thick Brazilian is going to be in her face. And I don't know why, but I think she's going to get the W here. I never actually got to watch the fight. I'll have to watch it back. I'm hearing Santino, of all people, saying robbery of all time, the biggest robbery of all time. And now I'm hearing people go back and say, I watched the fight. It was pretty close. I could see Vieira. So interesting. Just had a bad feeling about it. And that actually completed the sweep for me. So congratulations to all our Patreon members that got on that. Tino actually did really, really well too. I swept the board. And this week coming up, I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but we got some Cage Warriors, some CFFC. We got some really good stuff, and we got a really good community. So just my mid-show plug here, guys. Don't forget to go sign up to the Patreon. Not claiming overnight success, but man, it's a good community, and we've swept 3 weeks in a row. Either Santino or I, we've swept 3 weeks in a row, and close, on 4 cards in a row, with including Fury and those. So great place. Our NASCAR guy, he's thrown out 3-4 weeks in a row winners. And those are like plus 2,000 tickets or plus 4,000 tickets. They're insane tickets. And he's done it 4 weeks in a row. We're cranking on all cylinders. So go join, guys. I think we need 15 more members, and we're doing a new jacket giveaway. So if you guys aren't sure, if you're new to the channel, every 50 members, we're doing like the walkout jackets that the UFC gives you for your fighter, like the custom made ones. We're going to raffle one of those off. Could have blood on it, could have sweat, definitely has sweat on it. But we're going to send one to a random person. So don't forget, go sign up to the Patreon. Santino should put the link in the description here if the IT guy is doing it correctly for us. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, next up, we have Felice Herrig versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Man, I don't know what to think of this fight. I really don't know what to think of this fight. Here's my take. Sorry, guys. Small little coffee break. We're gonna crack open the can of LaCroix. I don't know how many of you guys got long COVID. I think I didn't have like almost any symptoms of COVID, but I lost like my taste for certain things. Key lime LaCroix used to be my absolute favorite, like over the limoncello, over anything else was my absolute favorite. And ever since I got COVID, and I had no symptoms, I was tired for a day, and then after that I was perfectly fine. It tastes like metallic. It tastes like chemicals in my mouth. That and spearmint gum and toothpaste. it's like these certain things, and I can't do it anymore. So this is the first time I'm trying the lime, just the regular lime, and been much better. So maybe my long COVID is still kicking, or maybe it's gone and I can go back to the key lime. All right, let's go into Felice, Herrig, and Karolina. I didn't want to spend too much time on this one. I know they have fought before, and it was 3.5, 4 years ago. It's been a long time since they fought. And I have never seen a more dramatic change in a fighter than Karolina. I mean, it is insane, Karolina. So going back and watching that first fight, right? It was a split decision, but I looked on MMA decisions. I think 100% of the MMA media scored the fight for Karolina. So I guess it was an incorrect split decision, but it was the correct winner, which is good, right? The Karolina of that day and the Karolina of today are two completely different fighters. Both of them are horrible. They're not good fighters. I mean, she makes so many fundamental mistakes. You know, we talk about Jeff Molina winning fights on Fight IQ and JJ Aldrich winning fights on just not making mistakes. Karolina is not only skilled, but she makes the most mistakes to put herself in the worst positions. I remember everybody calling me crazy for betting Jessica Penne, who was a dog. It was one of my favorite plays I've ever made. It was one of the better weeks I've ever had. It paid for a Hawaii trip. It paid for a very nice Ferragamo run. Like it was a great, great card. And nobody would listen to me. And I said, Karolina is not the same girl that dropped Joanna. She's not that girl. She's not anymore. She looks horrified to be in there. She's gun shy. She doesn't throw punches. Just makes simple grappling mistakes. She'll dive at stuff, spin at the wrong times. You can tell she has no idea what she's doing. Now, she moved to ATT for this camp, but she's 36 years old. What is a camp at ATT that already has 500 fighters? What is that going to do for you? All she's doing is getting beat up by K-Rock and Joanna. Like, she was already doing that same exact thing in Poland. You don't think Joanna was giving her tips? Now, my problem with her, again, from watching the first Felice fight, she was mean. If nothing else, if not talented, if not skilled, if not a great striker, no other skills on earth. Every time that Felice would get close, she would grab hands, she would grab wrists, she's throwing elbows, and she's throwing rabbit punches, and she's just in her face, mean as hell, throwing something at all times. Now in her old age, her 35, 36-year-old age, she tries to see everything first. Anytime somebody's throwing at her, her reaction is not, I'm going to swing back on you. It's like, oh, let me get out of the way of this thing first. Then I'm going to decide what to do. And the problem is she's so freaking slow and her reaction time is so bad that she's not able to. I mean, she's almost completely worthless standing up. If this was a rematch, you know, of that split decision 4 years ago or before this losing streak, we'd be like, okay, we got to avoid this one. Like, you know, she's not technical, but she's super aggressive and high volume and whatever. But man, I don't think she's the same girl. And it's not to say if Felice Herrig is a world beater, because she's definitely not, right? Her last fight was against Jandiroba. She got armbarred really quickly. Not impressive at all. She lost a decision to Michelle Watterson and lost that split to Karolina. But before that, she beat Kish, Grasso, Courtney Casey, Kaylin Curran, who was decent at the time. I mean, she's got solid wins. The biggest thing about her is she's an athlete. She's aggressive. She's an athlete. Always comes in great shape. And she's physical. My concern with Felice here is that she's gotten too comfortable and too rich. She's doing all that weird stuff on the side that's making her a ton of money. I haven't heard much from her. I don't really know about her life, but I hear she's doing very well. So my question is her heart still in it? And it doesn't really have to be to beat Karolina, but she has to at least want to a little bit, just a little bit. Like, hey, I know I got my money at home, but let me go win this fight for nothing more than street cred. If she has an ounce of fight in her, Felice does, I think she's going to win this fight. If I remember right, when I was taping the Penne one, Jessica Penne versus Karolina, I think Karolina was saying something about suicide, like losing all the fights in a row had made her like it crossed her mind, or I can't remember. It was something like super dark, and I was like, I hate to be on your pain there, but I was like, this sounds like a max bet opportunity for me on Jessica Penne, and it definitely worked out well. I hope she's in a good spot, but she has lost 5 fights in a row. And before that was a split decision with Felice Herrig. She beat Jodie Esquibal, and she lost 2 before that. So her UFC career has not been great. Her highlight of her entire career was dropping Joanna and then losing a decision and then beating a really young Rose by a split decision. And again, that was that I'm just going to throw a million things your way kind of Karolina. I don't think she's the same person. I like Felice to get it done here. Again, with all women's MMA fights, especially a 37-year-old and a 36-year-old, play this with caution. But I just see a really gun-shy Karolina. I don't think the camp I think the camp at ATT is the only thing keeping this line some semblance of a pick'em. If she wasn't at ATT, if she was still training with her husband in Poland, I think we'd be having Felice Herrig at minus 300, and then it would be almost unplayable. But minus 160, why not take a shot? Why not take a shot? It's literally who is more shot. And I think right now that's Karolina. I think that she's changed completely. All right. All right. Next up, we got Alonzo Menifield versus Oscar Mazharov. This one was shocking to me. Let's see if these are switched at all. Nope. So Alonzo Menifield is a minus 155 favorite over Oscar Mazharov at plus 130. Geez. I don't want to be irresponsible here because these are big guys, big, heavy-hitting guys. But how could you not put a very good chunk on Alonzo Menifield at these odds? It seems crazy to me. I told you guys, I think for me, what's cool is, a lot of you guys will message me and ask me what to look for in film. I love answering those questions. I hope everybody can go watch film. To me, watching film 5 years ago would have done nothing. I still wouldn't have known what I was looking at. So I don't know how you guys know, but I think it's good that you're putting the work in. That's awesome. Now, wiki capping is its own trait in itself, right? People are so mad at wiki cappers, but why, man? It cuts down so much time. Now, the number one thing that I look for when I'm just looking at records is somebody with all first round finishes. All first round finishes. Huge red flag. Especially if it's knockouts. Submissions could be one thing. Maybe you're just so dominant and such a great grappler and you get that submission. But all knockouts, that's a big red flag. That's a problem, right? So Oscar Mazharov, he's got an 8-second knockout in bare knuckle boxing, 33 seconds, 27 seconds. And then there was this one against Konstantin Linik. It says 2 minutes and 34 seconds. I'm not kidding. I think that fight was 8 seconds, 10 seconds. It wasn't 2 minutes and 34 seconds. I watched the whole thing multiple times. He's going out in this promotion and swinging like just a couple hard punches and a leg kick, and the other guys are just folding. It is bizarre. If you guys use MMA Tape Index or whatever, go watch those fights. They're a circus for all 12 seconds that they last. I mean, it's crazy to me. And then before that, he lost to Christian Torres in Titan FC. Christian Torres is 15-12 as a pro now. Decent boxer, but he was half the size of Oscar. Got him on the ground, started punching, and the dude just tapped immediately. I don't understand this one. I don't understand why it's lined so closely. This guy, Oscar Mazharov, is first round KO or bust. I mean, he doesn't have the chops to take it 2 rounds, 3 rounds, whatever. Menifield's at a good camp. He can wrestle. He hits like a truck. I mean, the obvious play here would be doesn't go the distance, but Menifield's decent. Menifield has shown us time and time again that he's decent. He's not that crazy berserker that he used to be, which I kind of almost wish that he was. But how does he lose this fight here? If he doesn't get KO'd in the first 12 seconds, I mean, he's going to take this guy down and he's going to beat the hell out of him, and it's going to be an easy night. Like, Menifield at 155, unless he's got a broken leg coming into this fight or, somebody knows that he's taking a dive, like, this is an absolute gift. You guys should be all over this one. He's the much better fighter. He's been in the UFC for a long time, better competition, probably more power, just better technique. This is crazy. Alonzo Menifield by country mile. All right. Let's see. All right, we're moving right along. Jeez, only 4 more fights. All right, this next one is going to be Mike Trizano versus Lucas Almeida. Okay, so in my wiki capping adventures, it's funny. I don't know how many of you guys were with me during Contender Series last year, but Contender Series last year was incredible. I freaking killed Contender Series. I called so many of the fights, so many dogs. I would study. I'd put so much time into this one. Contender Series is one of my favorites because a lot of times you're getting these great matchups versus just complete scrubs, and it's super, super easy to cash. Now, I didn't know who Lucas Almeida was, and then I remembered that I did tape him and for Contender Series, and I picked against him. I picked Zhalgas to win, which is how that fight went. But man, he's not bad. He's really not bad. I was expecting a way worse version of him. I remember not liking the tape so much. Something about him, I didn't like the tape that I was seeing before that. And something I did like about Zhalgas. I can't remember what it was, but I picked a really young kid over this experienced Brazilian. And that Brazilian impressed the hell out of me. Now he's going against Mike, Trizano. I know a lot of people are going to be over Trizano, and I understand why. He's good at everything. He's tough as they come. Like, there's no real weak points in his game, but there's no real strong points either, right? He's not blitzing people on the feet. He's not some takedown machine and an ADCC world champion. He just kind of does everything well, and that's what you really like. The problem that I have is Almeida never really stopped throwing punches. He throws hard as hell. They're big, impactful punches, and he never stops throwing. Like, even against Zhalgas, when you thought he'd be dead tired from throwing 100 punches in the first round, he's still throwing and throwing hard. Does things really well. Now, the one thing I was like, all right, I got you. Here's the big I got you moment was his win by guillotine in his last fight, right? 2 minutes and 7 seconds into the first round, he won by guillotine. And I was like, all right, cool. He's into guard pulling now, or he's getting taken down. This is going to be the edge on Trizano. Unfortunately, no, it wasn't. He was back against the cage. Guy ducked his head low, and he hit a beautiful, beautiful, like modified guillotine, and submitted him that way. So no knock on that game there. I mean, this is a great fight. I think the way to play this one, guys, is over a round and a half. I hope they line it at a round and a half because these are. I guess the Brazilian guy is a knockout artist. They're probably going to do 2.5. I think the smart play here is going over a round and a half. I think they have good chins. Um, I mean, it'll get sweaty with two guys that are just going to stand toe to toe and just sling leather on each other. So it will get sweaty. Doesn't mean it's my favorite play. I would lean Trizano here, but I could definitely see an upset. I could 100% see an upset. One crazy chuck over the top, boom, out goes Trizano. I could see just the volume and the leg kicks and all that other stuff, boom, and Almeida wins. But I'm going to lean Trizano here, and I'm going to lean the over 1.5 as part of a parlay builder. Oh, pardon me. All right. I'm glad I'm moving these things along. You guys would have a 2-hour podcast if it was me and Tino. I'm already an hour deep, just me, myself, and I, and only talking about fights, nothing else. All right. Okay, so here's another good spot. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Okay, so we have Karine Silva versus Poliana Botelho. Okay, women's fight, horrible fight. Well, that doesn't matter. We're just focusing on the matchup at hand. Okay, Karine Silva, I remember she was a massive, massive, massive favorite on Contender Series. By closing time, geez, if I had to remember correctly, I think she was minus 900 or something insane. And that was always the thing with Contender Series is if you found it early, you could get a great number and you could hedge out if you wanted to, or just kind of ride the momentum. She got way out of hand where even me, I was like, yo, we got to go the other girl for nothing more than this line is crazy. And I hate doing that. It's not my style. I don't like to just pick somebody because it's a huge plus number. It's just not my style. I like to pick the winners. But I was like, all right, this Asian girl, she can wrestle, she throws big overhands. But the biggest thing is Karine makes her own mistakes, and she does it so often. She makes the mistakes and puts herself in bad situations. And like I was just telling you guys with the wiki capping, fuck the wiki cappers. Okay. She's got a first round armbar, a win that's not listed method. First round, she lost a decision. She lost a knee bar in the first round. And then she's got a couple round twos in there, and the rest are round ones. All she does is finish fights. And she's finishing, low level girls. So to me, it's not super, super impressive. But what I mean by that is she's first round, second round, or bust. And the second that she fights somebody who's solid and is going to survive and going to hang in there and not tap to a Hail Mary, I'm going to throw myself on my back guillotine, she's going to lose. And the problem, the hard part for me is I don't think she's bad. I think she's got potential. If somebody got in her ear and said, stop jumping on your back, I think her striking could be decent. She's got a good front kick. She's got good punches. She's big. She's aggressive. There's a lot to like there. I think she's very athletic for kind of her size and shape and everything. But the problem is she wants to beat herself. She wants to fall over. She wants to be on her back. She doesn't want to give her hands a chance. She doesn't feel comfortable standing yet. The second that she gets hit, all right, we're on her back. Okay. Now, I like Poliana Botelho here. Okay. Luana Karolina is a hard girl to fight. And she had some really great moments. I mean, her takedown was good. A lot of her striking looked pretty decent in that fight. But she's just a hard girl to fight, right? That girl goes split decisions with everybody. She looks like sometimes the worst fighter on planet Earth. And then sometimes you're like, whoa, who is this? This is going to be a title contender. So, split decision doesn't look the best there, but I'm not going to beat her up about it. She lost to Jillian Robertson. She beat Lauren Mueller, lost to Cynthia Calvillo. She beat Pro Gonzalez and Siri Kondo. And Silvana Gomez Juarez, who's now in the UFC. I think she's big. I think she's more comfortable standing. I think she likes the takedowns. And I think she's fought 2 decisions before. She's fought 3 decisions in a row. And then before that, she had decisions. I think she's the more experienced fighter. And I think Karina is going to beat herself. To me, this is actually going to be a great, great, great spot. I think she's more comfortable. Poliana is more comfortable with the hands. I think she's got decent enough top game. And like I said, I think the biggest thing here is Karina is going to beat herself. So let's see what the odds are in this one. If this is another dog, I'm going to freak out. I mean, she is an underdog, but not by much. It's minus 120 for Silva, minus 104 for Poliana. That's got to be a play for me. It's got to be a play for me. I trust the girl who's going to beat herself less. I'm not saying Poliana's a world beater and she's this incredible fighter, but look at last week. Okay. Tabitha Ricci versus Poliana Viana, right? Tabitha Ricci is not a world beater. She needs a lot of work. Her hands are not good. She just kind of plods forward and just like, I'm here. And she's just going to kind of throw stuff every once in a while. Her wrestling's okay and her jiu-jitsu is fine. It is what it is. She needs a lot of work. She's not a great fighter. But the read on that one was super easy. Is Poliana Viana is going to sling herself. If she could jump in a cannon to fall into on her back faster, she would. I mean, how can I get to my back as quickly as possible? And my problem is nobody pulls them aside and says, hey guys, that's not winning fights. And what drives me the most crazy is fighters don't watch fights. Like I can name you 10 fighters. They don't watch fights ever at all. No fights. No, they don't understand what fight IQ means. They don't understand these little things. It's bizarre to me. No coaches either. The coaches don't get in their ear and say, hey, maybe we should stand up once we're taken down, or maybe you should trust your hands a little bit more. They're decent. Or maybe we should fight for top position. No one pulls these people aside and says that kind of stuff. So for that, I'm going to go Poliana Botelho. I like her. All right. Moving right along. All right, next up, we got Dan Ige versus Movsar Evloev. I don't think this one has to be super, super complicated. Man, the hate for Evloev, I don't understand it from people. Oh my God, he almost got murdered by Dawodu. I just rewatched the fight. He got hit twice. That's what happens in a fight. You get hit. I can't remember if they gave the round to Dawodu or not. I mean, I think he definitely won the round. He outstruck him the whole time. And Evloev weirdly like wouldn't wrestle, like refused to kind of wrestle until he got hit. And then he started ragdolling him again. Man, Evloev can wrestle his ass off. My only knock on him is that he gives up his positioning way too easily. There's so many scrambles created in his grappling. And that is the one thing that Dan Ige does best, is just his weird, crazy scrambles. His striking is kind of that same style. It's looping in, looping out. It's the big overhands. It's just kind of catching people. I don't think Evloev is obviously he's not a world beater on the feet. His striking needs a lot of work and a lot of help. But one thing he does do well is he does move his head very well. You know, when he's standing in front of you, he's constantly seeing things, slipping, parrying. Now, the thing that makes Dan Ige really dangerous, I think, is going to get taken away from him this fight, right? Those big looping overhands and the zipping in and out, I don't think he's going to be as willing to do that in fear of the takedown. So those things that made him so dangerous, I don't think are going to be at his disposal as often. And if he does, then great. Evloev back to the wrestling. I love Evloev here. I don't see necessarily a really crazy path to victory for Dan Ige. I would say the easy way to go about this fight is you bet Evloev, however you want to bet him. And then you can hedge it with a Dan Ige KO. That's the only way that we see this happening. But honestly, Evloev has not given you guys much to critique. You can critique his stand-up, but the one thing that's awesome about Evloev is you know exactly what you're going to get every single time. He's going to be in your face. He's grimy. He can wrestle his ass off, fights for top position. He's got good cardio. There's a lot to love about Evloev. So don't mess this one up, guys. I like Movsar Evloev here. Alrighty. And that takes us to the main event of the evening. We have Alexander Volkov versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. This fight is kind of everything that I hate. It's just kind of everything that I hate. There's a lot of unknowns here, but you know, one thing that I hate betting is main events. You know, we saw why last week, and honestly, this whole year has been kind of craziness. I hate betting main events, and I hate betting heavyweight fights. And now this is both. And not only is it both, but like we have Alexander Volkov, who we're not really sure yet. That Tybura fight was super, super alarming. And everyone's like, oh, no, it's because he had blah, 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 blah. But we don't know. Is he that kind of like lazy, like barely surviving striker who looked gassed out after a round? Is that still him? Is that the guy? Because we didn't get to see that with Aspinall. We saw him get completely dominated. And Rozenstruik, I mean, he always comes up short in the big moments. Is he as good as people say that he is? I don't think so. You know, people say he's got all this kickboxing experience. Fine, but it's in Suriname, not in freaking Glory or K1. So fine. I think he's fine standing. He's decent. If this were old Volkov and I knew what I was going to get with Volkov, I would take Volkov here. Just the jab, the range. There's a lot to like about Volkov. Now, if we get the Tybura Volkov, then I like Jairzinho. But we just don't know what we're going to get here. Now, one thing I do like is, I guess here would be your case for Volkov. A lot of Jairzinho Rozenstruik's fights, he's been losing until he won, right? Almost all of his wins, he was losing until he won. Sakai, I mean, that was a close round, but I thought Sakai was kind of pulling it off that first round, and then he lands it and wins. The Alistair Overeem fight was losing until he won. He beat Alan Crowder. Junior Albini was giving him the business until he wasn't. And the deal with Alexander Volkov is he hasn't really been knocked out much. He got knocked out by Derek Lewis, and other than that, it's a lot of wins, a few losses here and there, and they're all by decision. So for me, in a 5-round fight, in a heavyweight fight, I imagine these guys are going to come out pretty reserved, especially because Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a counter striker, right? So he's going to be predicated on what Volkov's going to throw. Volkov has looked lazy as hell. He's looked slow. He's looked tired. So if we get that same Volkov, I think we're just going to be sitting looking at two guys just staring at each other. So I like an over 1.5, over 2.5, over 3.5. weirdly in a heavyweight fight, but I think we can get some good odds there, especially with Rozenstruik having the resume that he has. That's the way for me to play this fight. I think I would lean Volkov, but again, I don't know what I'm getting there. Um, Usually this would be a fight to only mess with if I'm having a good rest of the night. If I'm having a bad night, I'm not going to double down and go for it on this one. But I do like an over 1.5. That's always my safe bet. I'm a parlay guy, so that's how I like to run it. So I take the 1.5, 2.5. I think are both good. 3.5, you might be pushing it, but I still like that there. And I would lean Volkov. I think that does it. That's another episode. We got an hour and almost 10 minutes. So very solid episode, guys. There's a ton of fights. I think there's a lot of great betting opportunities here. Um, you know, we're going to load up pretty early, and then we're right back to the second half of the year. Some great fights on deck. This coming up on a year of me, almost a year of me trying to do this, not professionally, but like taking it seriously, going, hey, I could actually do this and I could actually make some serious money. I did it in June of last year, and here we are coming up to June of this year. So it's been a very fun journey, a very stressful journey, a very tiring journey, but a lot of times very rewarding. So thank you guys for always tuning in. The positive, the negative, it all is what it is. But thank you guys for coming along, and everyone in the Patreon. I think we can all see, like, it's not we're not like, oh my God, we're the most amazing ever. We're not, like, we know what the hell we're talking about. We're very good at analyzing fights. I have a fight coming up. Santino has fought, and he's a coach of a lot of the best guys in the world. So we know what the hell we're talking about. We literally watch film. I watch film all day, every day. Like, get home from work, watch film until I have to go train, come back home, watch more film. I don't go out on weekends. I watch film. So, you can say what you want about us, I guess, but we know what the hell we're talking about. Doesn't mean we're going to win every single one, but we know what we're talking about. And a lot of times, even when we lose, the reads are always correct either way. And it means nothing. It doesn't pay any bills, but you know, we know what we're talking about. So go hop on the Patreon, guys. It's just really cool to see you guys. We're not making $10 million off the Patreon. I really want to see you guys be successful too. I want to see you guys cash bets. I want to see you guys with tickets that I didn't put up, right? You don't have to copy every ticket that we play. A lot of the fun part is maybe I lose something and somebody else in our group wins. And that's something that we love to see. But great think tank. It's $25 a month. You get all of our picks. We've swept 3 weeks in a row, 100% on the picks. I try to get all the local stuff out. CFFC, I put out a nice journal. I'm going to go work on Cage Warriors, and we do that every week. When we have time, you can't be mad about $25 a month, guys. We're not charging you $5,000 a month for this package and then being late on it. We're charging you $25 a month. We're not getting rich off this. I'd rather see you guys be successful. Then you can tip us with the winnings. That's how I'll get rich. All right. All right. That's been another episode, guys. Santino should be back on the next one. But until then, guys, thank you so much. Thanks for supporting. Go like and subscribe the channel. Go sign up to the Patreon. Alrighty, guys. Thanks. Bye.